Okay, welcome back, everybody. We'll just continue on with our business items. So number 7.1, my board chair report is there. So if there's any comments or questions. There's no comments. Oh, go ahead. Trustee Tucker.
I think it was great that you were able to get to the First People's Church.
Yeah.
That was wonderful. Did you take any pictures, or I know
Yes.
that you put the video there?
Yeah.
Somewhere. I just wondered if was there a large group there?
No, it was just our board delivering our donation. Yep. I think there's going to be a little segment done by Ground Media on it as well. And then Caitlin has, I think,
A news release.
Yeah.
Yeah, we reached out to the priest from the church for a quote for our news release, and once we get that, we'll
Yeah, that's great. I think it's such a good thing that our division was able to put together.
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Are all the trustees aware of how much had been collected to date that was part of the, that was given to the church?
You did put it in.
It is an item on the agenda.
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
was gonna speak to
Yeah.
as well, so.
Yeah, we'll have
It
another
wasn't the
update on it. Yeah, I did put it in the email, so we can speak to it
Awesome.
later on as well. And Charlie and I are going to attend a meet and greet tonight. Going for supper.
Barbecue.
Yeah. Yeah.
meeting greet with who?
Mr. LaGrange and MLA Smith. Yeah, and I'm not sure if anybody else is gonna be there, but it'll be nice to go out to Drake Valley and just enjoy visiting that community. If there's nothing else, we can go on to 7.2.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you have before you the superintendent's report. I'll highlight a few items in the area of faith leadership. There are some kind of blurred lines here, and with my work with CCSSA, it's kind of not stark Catholic work, but I think it's good for trustees to be aware of. So I have been working with the executive director to talk about we've received a provincial grant at CCSSA to look at the curriculum, the draft curriculum from the province through a Catholic lens. So that's what that is. So we're in that process. So if you ever hear questions regarding that, we are providing feedback to the province through that organization.
That's excellent. So
Yeah.
is there a timeline?
Yeah.
Like-
Yeah, we have to have that submitted for January.
So Charlie, just CCSSA was the Catholic School Superintendent.
Council of Catholic
Council,
School
okay. I
Superintendents
was trying to figure out which
Association.
one was council.
Another acronym in education.
Yeah. And that's what I was wondering, the curriculum review, it's the new curriculum you review,
The draft,
the draft.
correct.
Yeah. That's good.
In the second item, building effective relationships. It was yesterday, I believe, that we had the new teachers to start Catholic here in the board office.
Oh,
So I provided greetings to them, and we introduced ourselves as a senior admin. There are 11 new teachers in the division this year. So again, we do have kind of a formal mentorship program. I know you had mentioned that regarding Edwin Park. The division is annually sought feedback from those teachers on the value of that program. We continue to refine it and make it better to meet their needs. So just by way of a rough sense of information, about 50% of that program is dedicated to the area of faith, and 50% of the program's pedagogy, curriculum, that kind of stuff. Moving on to number 5. And again, I don't believe this is the right wording, but discussions as a senior admin about implementing the loss of learning funding from the province. And I've asked Lori to just kind of give you a little bit of an overview. And I don't think that's the name of the grant, is it, Lori? But
It's early years assessment and intervention.
there we go.
That's what it is.
Yeah, which is better than learning loss, so
Yeah.
I shouldn't have called it that. It's not really a great name. But anyways, Lori, if you could tell us a little bit about that, what's involved in applying for that grant and what we're doing as a division, please.
So on June 30th, we received information from Alberta Education that we will receive, or we can apply for a grant for literacy and numeracy assessments and intervention for grades 1 to 3. And so essentially, we have to come up with a process for assessments and then subsequent interventions. So the assessments for grades 2 and 3 have to be completed by teachers by the end of September and submitted to Alberta Education, the results. And then grade 1 is by the end of January. And that also, again, all the assessments for literacy and numeracy need to be completed at that time and submitted to Alberta Education. At the end of September, we'll find out what funding we will receive in regards to addressing the interventions that we need in our schools. And it's essentially to address, as Charlie said, any kinds of gaps in learning that occurred in regards to COVID. So because of going online, offline, in school, out of school, etc. This is again to help address and support those students, and hopefully then create more of an equal learning platform for all of them, right? So that it's not that we have some students that perhaps weren't able to attend or did experience some learning loss, and others who had the supports, etc., and ability to continue on with their learning during that time. And so we have met with senior admin, we've met with the directors, and we will also meet with administrators and learning support facilitators in regards to, okay, we're going to get the assessments moving forward, but then planning for interventions. For basically there's 16-week learning sprints, and that's how it's going to be implemented moving forward. But we do need to have a process in place. So that's where we're at with the grant.
Do you need the grant first though? Like you need the assessment, and then depending on the assessment will determine your grant?
That's what I understand. We're just basically going to do the assessments as required, and then that'll get sent in, and hopefully we will get information as to the exact amount. We have a base amount that's been thrown about, but we're not 100% certain until we receive that official information from Alberta Education.
So just further to that, it is a little bit problematic in the sense that we can't really start the school year with the staff we might need to provide those interventions because we don't know how much we're getting yet. So that will have to possibly be some hiring after the fact, in October-ish. Okay.
Trustee Tugwood had a question.
I was sort of, but Charlie was asking, I was also saying, so every school in Alberta is going to be submitting.
Well,
This
no.
is huge, isn't it?
Yeah, it's every school division.
Every school division,
Right, so what's going to happen is the assessments will occur at the school level.
right?
They will input that data into the database that we're creating, and then that information we will input to Alberta Education. And some school divisions may decide not to apply for this funding. That's a possibility. The likelihood of that is probably small. But
So this is all the school divisions, this isn't the private schools and charter schools, do you know?
I'm not 100% certain. As far as I know, it's open to everyone.
To everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, just as a reminder to trustees, because it's been a while since it was announced, there's 45 million as a province available.
Right. Just, thinking if it's just school divisions, it's a bit more school, it's.
Right.
Yeah. Trustee Sirwa?
Yes, I was going, that's wonderful, but what about the grade 4s? Do they miss out?
Well, this is just targeted funding for grade 1 to 3. But the good part is that then, at least these early learners will receive those interventions. So, which, I mean, there were probably some planned interventions, but this will enhance what is in place within the school. So it's an addition.
Charlie?
So that's a good question, Trustee Sirwas. The thing is with our response to intervention model, whether we got this grant or not, we were going to talk about interventions for those students anyways. So the students from 4 to 12, if they do need interventions, we still plan to provide those in our usual model. And I know on Learning Day in November, we were going to have that discussion too, with teachers about how they can support students after the pandemic and recovering from that pandemic.
And the September 30th deadline, that was for
Grades 2 and 3 to be
grade 10.
assessed.
That's
Yeah.
that's
Yep, it's
Tight.
fast.
That's
Yep,
And then
Right.
the grade 1 is the end of January,
that's correct.
so then you wouldn't know whether to hire somebody until February, March, I don't know.
Well, no, I think that what I understand from the grant and the information is that we will, they'll base the funding essentially on the numbers that we have for total students. That's right, so that's my understanding. Once I did meet with Alberta Education and have this conversation. And so they were able to say, yes, okay, so right now we have approximately 1,222 students in grades 1 to 3. So then we would get a chunk of the funding based on that.
Okay, so it's based on that, it's not based, I thought maybe you were saying it's based on the number of kids that actually needed.
The interventions, that, no, I don't think so. Because again, from 2 different sources, I was able to glean the information that it's approximately based on the numbers that we have.
That makes more sense. It's good, because of the price next year.
okay.
And that is all the items that I was going to highlight, so. Again, I'm happy to take questions on anything else.
So I
I just have one question, and number 2, the responding to parent concerns. Are those letters that came into us, maybe that letter writing campaign?
So nobody's written any letters, but they have written emails.
Emails. I
Yes, so I know that you've seen some of those as trustees and we've all received them as senior administration. Lately, in the last week, I know, the chair and I have received the same templated letter from SOS, for example. I just received another one this morning, so
I did.
yeah, we're all getting those. So we, with Caitlin and I kind of created that wording. Again, that you can respond to parents using that standard messaging.
So are you responding to these parents? or-
It depends who it's addressed to. The one that was addressed to me today, but if they're writing to you as a trustee, I think you need to respond as a trustee.
Or if they're writing to all the trustees, but the one was addressed to my name,
Right.
so I need to.
that you can respond to. If the email is being sent to all trustees, I have been responding.
I assume.
And
I don't-
responding to everybody, so everybody sees that a response is gone.
So then if the name is up there, it says my name, you're not, but all of our names are up there, I don't respond to it because you will.
If that's how.
I'm just not sure.
Yeah,
what
if
to
that,
do.
you know what, trustees, that just let me know how you want to go forward with that. That's how I was doing it. If it was coming to all of us, I was responding as the chair. But if you want to change that and it's somebody from your community, then, we can change how we are responding. If you have a preference. So should we continue on like that then? Okay, so if everybody's getting an email, the board chair will respond. If you're receiving individual emails, you can respond individually, but you can CC myself and Charlie. And then that just keeps everybody, we know what the comments are. And concerns, so.
And we can use the template that you said.
Sure,
Same
yeah,
that we did.
yes, and what Caitlin has provided. I did have a question about new teachers, and I'm just wondering, how they're supported at that faith level. Sometimes, just the little things, like they need their faith items for their prayer table. Are they provided anything, or is there anything that we can help them with? Especially the prayer clocks, I found I did have to provide some to somebody.
Yeah, that should be.
Because it was hard to find,
That's all coordinated through our director of faith, Claire Gannon, who
Okay.
at the orientation, the new teacher orientation speaks of that. But also the religious education coordinators at the school also help that whole staff, you know, when we change liturgical seasons, so.
Yeah.
That's how that's coordinated, but teachers shouldn't have to buy their own cloths.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there is a resource somewhere, or are they provided? Can they ask and get that resource or something?
Yeah.
So anyhow, I just wondered about that, because it's one of those things that probably a new teacher isn't thinking about, like right off the hop, and then all of a sudden they need it, right? So I did put a message out to our CWL if they had any suggestions, or if they wanted to make some, you know, and they might.
Yeah, I would say that
respond.
your contact would be Claire.
Okay.
If the CWL does want to get involved in that capacity,
Okay,
and she'll let you know what the need is, if any.
okay, sure. Go ahead, trustee Tucker.
Just wondered if there was any new updates on Father Lacombe School.
So things are moving maybe just a hair behind.
Yeah.
But not too bad. I'm not fully in the loop on that project because Ed and Chris Mannion kind of oversee more of the day-to-day stuff, but my understanding is that we're just getting ready to move on with steel. But Ed, I don't know, is there anything you want to add?
I've been a little bit out of the loop just with my vacation time this day, so I can't add anything.
It seemed to have slowed down a little bit in our little community. We're having 2 new schools built, one for the Seventh-day Adventist. Separate schools, Catholic school. So I hear people comparing. Are they not working at Father Lacombe anymore? Oh, yeah, it just.
When I spoke to the vice principal at our admin meeting, Dustin was saying that there was a little delay with the steel,
Okay,
but it's scheduled to be there this week, I believe. And the walls will go up a lot faster and stuff.
I'll say that, delay with the steel.
That
We'll blame it on
happened,
me.
yeah. That happened near Father Lacombe, or Father Leduc was built too. There was like a steel problem. It's really nice that the plans are up there. That's really nice.
Yeah, we had them up for the admin meeting as well, just
Yeah.
kind of feature the drawings for Father Lacombe.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's awesome. I would love to have this maybe for the parish. People would be asking me.
oh, that would be.
More
nice.
until the next meeting if you would like.
I could borrow them and just put them up for
Sure.
after mass. People
Yeah,
could
because
have a
we've
look
had
at
our
it.
big meetings through here, so yeah, absolutely. Take it with
Okay.
you.
I will take you up on that, thank you.
Okay, and I just had one other question regarding elections. Is there any communication going out to parishes, or should trustees take care of that in their community? Because there is a communication plan about trusteeship, correct?
Yes, I'll ask
The
maybe Ed and
elections.
Caitlin to speak to that.
We had kind of talked in our communication plan, we kind of said that the trustees would organize those events at the parishes, go talk
Okay.
about the parishes.
Okay, so okay, I can remember, so yeah, that's great.
Should we be sending out some reminders to trustees if there's activities?
Yeah, that would be good, just a reminder, just, you know, make sure that you inform your parish and possibly get something in the bulletin, you know.
About the election?
Elections, yeah, and Catholic trusteeship. And there is the ACSTA handbook now, so just to be aware of that.
And
That's something
Caitlin was
where-
working on the trustee call. That is something too that you could use that exact letter if you want and just ask that it go in the bulletin at your local parish.
Oh, okay, yeah, that would be good.
So it's a nice summary in that
Yeah.
call.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? And just congratulations to the new director of finance. Okay, so we'll move on to 7.3, Secretary Treasurer Report.
My apologies to the board that I didn't get it into the agenda. I can, my priorities have been elsewhere. Summer months generally fairly quiet. A few things, majority of it was activities related to the recruitment of our new director. This is Administration and Finance, Barrett Grab. He's coming from Public Practice Office in Red Deer. So we're looking forward to him coming on board, and he's made himself available for next Monday, which is really nice from my perspective, that we have them kind of on board as early as possible in terms of helping with the audit process and the audited financial statements. Regards to other things, again, election is kind of gearing up again, so we're refreshing those. With regards to previously talked about extensions on our transportation contracts, those have all been signed off and completed. And that's about all I'm going to kind of highlight from the summer, with the exception of the library. We've got a verbal agreement between the town of Drayton Valley and us. We're just trying to formalize it because there's multiple layers on how that school, the land and everything is structured. So we're trying to find the best way to have a structured agreement that recognizes that library space is still accessible to the town, but they're relinquishing it to us temporarily or permanently, however the timing works out. That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's excellent. We'll be able to use that space, so thank you for looking through that. Any other comments or questions for Ed? Okay, so we'll move on to 7.4.
Just before we turn it over to Tara, I'll just remind trustees on after the Christ the King tragedy, you had asked for an update on the emergency operations system annually. So it is on the board work plan, and that's why it's on this agenda.
Thank you.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Yes, as Superintendent Bouchard mentioned, this is an update as to the key roles for the Emergency Operations Center here at Central Office. And so I just have in the agenda explanation of all of the key roles, and I'll be able to let you know the members that are in those roles. As Superintendent Bouchard mentioned, it is something that needs to be updated every year and ensure that everybody's keeping up on that. So I'll start with the first role, and that is the Director of the Emergency Operations Center. And so the director this year will be myself in that role. And the director is responsible for activating division emergency response plans and incident action plans, supporting the school site in their emergency response, managing the resources, strategic direction, control, and coordination of the emergency, and making sure the safety measures are in place, and activates and organizes direct staff in the EOC. So this, as you can imagine, is something that you have in place prior to any needs. Everyone is trained in their position and ready to go. All positions have a backup. So of course you'd have a person who's in the role, but then you have a first emergency replacement in a second. The director's role, everyone else in the OC is that everyone responds to the director and keeps in touch with the director. The director is who keeps in touch with the superintendent. So that's where that line of communication goes through. So you have the role of the public information officer. So I'm sure that would make sense that that is Caitlin, as you can understand that goes through. So Caitlin oversees and coordinates all public communication that will go through there. The media activity, prepares a spokesperson, and issues the official communications. You have an EOC safety officer, and again, it would make sense in our placement of Stephanie Whitrick, who is our division safety officer as well. So that monitors the EOC personnel and the incident site to anticipate any other hazardous situations, and develops and recommends safety actions based on the situation. So you also have an agency liaison officer, and our agency liaison officer is Ed Rodka, and Ed oversees coordination and communication with all non-tactical agencies such as social services, Red Cross, and so on. Then you have operations chiefs. You're going to hear some duplications because they're names, right? So the operations chief will be myself as well, and that's implements, manages, and executes the action plans that come through and directly supervise. So you can see there's a little bit of overlap for two roles there, so that makes sense.
Tara, if I could just
Yeah.
piggyback on that, in an organization where we might have 50 people, you might have more segregated roles, but because we are small, we have some duplication.
very reasonable duplication. Okay, and the planning chief in there again. That's in my role, so developing and maintaining that incident action plan upon the incident and threat risk assessment. You have incident action plans that include reception, evacuation centers, parent-student reunification, any staging areas, student caring, safety of all supervision of staff and students, transportation may be needed on the site, any technology that's needed or documentation and recovery. So that's where that is. You activate the VITRA team, and VITRA stands for Violent Threat Risk Assessment. So that team will get activated, and the the planning chief also collects, analyzes any documentation. I guess anticipating any forecast needs in the future as well. And of course, this one will make sense to you too, the finance and logistical chief, which will be next. Of course, we have Ed Latka in that role as well. And the operations chief, of course, was Laurie Cardinal, so I mentioned her name. And the finance chief manages emergency finances, maintains the records, procurement of contracts, any outside contracts need to be procured to come in to support the situation, tracks incident-related time, there's cost, consumption of resources, all of those things are needed. The finance and logistical chief also develops all reports, manages the insurance and claims for emergency funding as well. So those are the main primary roles of the EOC here at central office, and support is the most important thing with the EOC and supporting sites who have their school emergency response team, or you may have heard the term before, CERT. And so the EOC is supporting the school emergency response team there as well. But each of these key positions that I described also have support under that are supporting them in their roles, such as a logistic team lead, technology team leads, emergency management system coordinators as well. So throughout central office, we have members that are identified to take those roles. It would make sense. We would have our technology department director and supervisor to be in those positions as well. So that is this year's identified EOC. Any questions about those?
Hopefully we never need this. And spokesperson for the media, is that you or Charlie?
That would be Charlie.
So, when there is an incident, so we just revised that board policy, I think last meeting. So between the board chair and myself, we would make that decision on that event. So it could be the board chair, it could be me. We would clear that up early on and proceed accordingly. And you'll see there's not really a specific role for me in there, because a lot of times I could have to go on site, or I have to leave the room to speak with the board chair. So that's why I'm not the kind of director of the EOC.
I do have one question. So, I mean, these are very unfortunate incidents that, it's very unfortunate we went through this. And, but because it was here, I'm sure it made it, you're a little bit more in tune with how, I'm wondering about our other communities and the support that they get. It would all be, via phone or whatever. I guess, when you're far away, just how do you ensure that that community has the support that they need in that moment? Through this.
It's a good question. If we talk about this most recent incident, we have, since in the last 3 years, we have gathered this team twice. It was actually Caitlin's first day, I believe.
Yes.
That was the first time that we had an incident at
Father
Father Leduc,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But in this last incident, the team did not go on site. So that same level of service would have been no different in any of our communities. When you have a lockdown, you can't go to the site. So it's not like, anybody could go over anything like that. And that's why, if you look at Ed's role as the agency liaison, for example, he would reach out to the RCMP in, say, Drayton Valley and so on. So we would still have those same processes. It would just be a different person that he would be speaking to, but same process.
Yeah, I was just thinking about our other communities and that, that they feel supported, you know, in every piece that they need to be supported, just because, you know, everybody is up here, so. Well, it is helpful and to be familiar with, you know, with what happens and just, you know, that we don't have to enact it regularly, or just really unfortunate that these things happen, so. Well, thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Okay. So 7.5.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Ed, in the folder, if you could bring up the board calendar, please. Thank you. So, of course, in an election year, this calendar is usually approved after the new board comes on. However, the two items, the COSC and the Archbishop meeting. The COSC meeting normally happens in October, and the Archbishop meeting usually happens in November. The problem with waiting until after the election is there's no time there to have the COSC meeting or plan for it. So if we need to let school councils know, principals know, and trustees know, we probably should pick a date for that COSC meeting at this meeting here today. The Archbishop meeting in November, I know the Archbishop is really busy in November, and Kim has reached out already, but if the board is okay, we could see about his availability and book him. And that way it's ready to roll, you know, when the new board comes on, and we can let our school principals know that. You'll recall that the trustees said it would be good to have the principals there, along with the parish priests and the Archbishop. So it would be good to kind of let people know and book the Archbishop. So I think that was a bit of an oversight on my part in June by not scheduling these two meetings. So my apologies, but if we could have some conversation today, that would be appreciated.
Any comments or?
Is that the calendar for 2021?
That was 2020, that was 2021. We're just bringing up 21, 22 now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So are trustees in favor of Charlie's suggestion just to book the Archbishop in November on one of his available dates?
Good idea. Yes.
Okay, trustee Skiddich? That's good. Okay, so going ahead with that, pick up the availability of the Archbishop. And then the cost, if you recall, last year we did have a cost meeting after Christmas. And we didn't get much feedback on how to go forward. So I'm just wondering what everyone thought of the meeting last year, if we should try to plan it the same. So what's going to happen in the fall, the school councils are going to have their AGMs. They're going to be trying to figuring out their own council. It is helpful to have costs in October or November so that, you know, it kind of helps them jumpstart their work as school council. But sometimes it's too much too soon as well, you know, so yeah, I'm not sure what we can do with the best option. Okay, I did like it after Christmas last year. November is very busy. We have ACSTA, ASBA, you know, Catholic Education Sunday. There's a lot going on in November. And October, it'll be just too soon, unless we have it before October.
Go to the calendar section, please.
But
Before the election?
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think before the election would be good.
Trustees could change.
Yeah.
As far as my school, they pretty well put it all together at the end of last year. So we can,
They put together
yeah,
that.
Italian's going to be chair.
Oh, of school council.
School council.
Oh,
Sorry,
nice.
as far as our school
Yeah.
council.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so they pretty well got everybody filled in all the positions and they're.
So when we had it after Christmas last year, we were able to do a little bit more consulting with our school councils in regards to, you know, policy or position statements, like kind of provincial kind of talks and discussions that were going on. That was one good thing because position statements were starting to be talked about, you know, by Alberta School Board Association. So anyhow,
I like the idea of having it after Christmas. That gives you more time.
there was also, there was also the option. We held it virtually, right? And, you know, and that is an option because then we might get more
Yes.
people attend, more people can attend, holding it virtually, but we can decide that later. It can be a blend, it can be virtual and in person. So, okay, so do we want to try for January? A January cost meeting? Trustee Spinach, do you have any comment? Okay, so it probably, like if it is during that second week, then if it's after the 19th, then we've had some time to talk about it at the board meeting. So if we have it in the last week in January, like maybe we'll just pick January 27th.
If it is in January, I mean, we could set it here today tentatively, and then the new board could confirm it. We could put it on the organizational meeting docket.
Is there any conflict with school calendars?
To my knowledge.
Okay, so how about we try January 27th? And then we'll have to do some. Trustee Spinach, you're on mute. Unless he's talking to somebody else.
Are you willing to set a time for that? And we could tentatively invite the administration. And
Yes.
they could also let their school councils know, should they ask.
Yeah, so last year we had it at 4 o'clock. I believe so that admin could attend and we were kind of done by 6. It's like a 2-hour meeting. So do you want to go from 4 to 6 again? We'll try that. And if we can incorporate, you know, a supper to kind of end the event, that was always nice.
Yeah. But like you said, I think if we can have virtual, we're gonna get more people. A lot of people, the school councils are working.
Yeah.
We can try to get off a little bit early, but
Yeah.
to make it here for 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
No.
I know other considerations were, you know, trying to get people back home before dark, or, you know, so they still had time in the evening with their families. So, you know, we had that as a consideration as well, but you know, most people would have to leave by 3 o'clock to get here. So yeah, we might get some feedback on the start time.
And it's January, it could be a storm, but if we have that Zoom
Virtual.
option, the virtual
Yeah.
option, then that's great.
Okay, so is that good? Okay. Trustee Spinach, did you have any comments? Because you are on mute.
No, I'm okay with those dates. That'll work for me. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, 7.6. So we are getting close to lunch. Perhaps we can just break for lunch and come back. What is the return time for everybody? 12:45? Because you are on mute.
No, I'm okay with those dates. That'll work for me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I feel like I'm Reliving some
Yeah.
Okay, so I will call a recess for lunch and we'll return at 12:45. Thanks.
Okay, have a good lunch.